When Odessa's summer sun began to fade over the Black Sea, the smell of sea salt mixed with the laughter of tourists drifting across the promenade. In the middle of it all, a young Ukrainian woman stood behind a small counter, flipping through her recipe notebook, filled with dreams. Not of French cuisine or Italian pasta, but something far stranger to her neighbors. She called it sweet Filipino spaghetti. Her story didn't begin in a kitchen though. It started with a random video on the internet. One she almost skipped. It showed a smiling Filipino family sharing plates of red, glossy spaghetti at a birthday party. Children shouting, "Happy birthday," as adults sang in Taglish. The noodles coated with a sauce that looked too bright to be European. She clicked replay, then again. There was something magnetic about that joy. Something warm that pierced through the grayness of Ukrainian winter and the quiet loneliness that had settled after the past years of uncertainty and loss. She didn't know then that this small curiosity would change her life completely. Her taste buds, her friendships, her culture, even the way she saw kindness. A week later, she decided to try cooking it. She typed into her phone, Filipino spaghetti recipe. The results confused her. Banana ketchup, hot dogs, condensed sweetness in a main dish. Everything about it went against what she learned from European culinary balance. But curiosity won. She went to her local grocery store, bought spaghetti noodles, tomato sauce, a bottle of sweet ketchup, and the closest thing she could find to Filipino-style hot dogs. Pinkish sausages from a Polish brand. At home, she improvised. As the sauce simmered, the kitchen filled with a sugary, salty aroma that she couldn't quite define. When she tasted it, she laughed out loud. It was so strange. Sweet like dessert, but comforting like soup. Her roommate walked in, sniffed the air, and frowned. "What are you cooking?" "Something from the Philippines," she said proudly. "It smells like children's party," the roommate teased. "Exactly," she replied, giggling. That's the point. Over the next few weeks, she made it again and again, refining her own version. She even found an Asian store in Kyiv that sold banana ketchup, imported from the Philippines. She learned to fry the hot dogs just right, to sprinkle cheese over the top, to serve it not with wine, but with a tall glass of iced soda, exactly how the Filipino videos showed it. She began calling it her happy food. Whenever work became stressful, or when the city felt cold and mechanical, she'd cook her Filipino spaghetti and eat it while watching vlogs of Filipinos, laughing in tropical markets, beaches, and fiestas. There was something about their happiness that felt infectious. The way they turned even simple food into a reason to celebrate. Then, one day, she brought it to her office potluck. Her co-workers expected something Ukrainian, maybe borscht or vareniki, but she showed up with a tray of noodles covered in reddish sauce. "What is this?" someone asked. "It's spaghetti," she said, Filipino style. The first bite caused laughter around the table. "Why is it sweet?" one man exclaimed, eyebrows raised. "Because that's the magic," she said. "It's not just pasta, it's happiness." By the end of lunch, the tray was empty. People asked for the recipe. Someone even said, "This could be a hit in Kyiv cafes." She smiled but didn't answer. Deep inside, she felt proud. Not because she invented something new, but because she connected with another culture's soul through food. The following month, she started documenting her spaghetti adventures on social media. Short videos showing how she mixed banana ketchup, fried hot dogs, and grated cheese with the caption, "Ukrainian girl discovers Filipino joy through spaghetti." To her surprise, the comments section exploded. Filipinos from all over the world, from Manila to Dubai, filled her posts with heart emojis and thank yous. They said things like, "Welcome to the Filipino family," and "You just made our childhood food famous in Ukraine." It was the first time she felt such warmth from strangers. There was no judgment, no rivalry, only kindness. Some Filipinos even messaged her saying, "If you ever visit the Philippines, we'll cook for you." She read every comment before bed, feeling something stir in her heart. A curiosity that became longing. One night, as she watched another Filipino vlog, this time showing a bustling Jollibee restaurant full of laughter and singing staff, she whispered to herself, "I want to see that for real." She started saving up. She worked extra hours, skipped nights out, and spent weekends taking online freelance gigs. Her dream, to visit the Philippines, the country that gave her a new kind of happiness. Months passed. Winter turned to spring. Finally, she booked a flight from Kyiv to Manila. The day she received her visa, she cried tears of joy. Her friends thought she was crazy for choosing a faraway country just for spaghetti and smiles. But she didn't care. She felt like she was being pulled towards something bigger than herself. Something she couldn't explain yet. Her mother worried. "Why the Philippines?" she asked. "It's so far, and it's not like Europe." She smiled. "Because I feel like I belong there, even if I've never been." When the plane landed in Manila, she looked out the window and saw a sea of lights, like a galaxy fallen onto the earth. The humid air hit her the moment she stepped out, wrapping her like a warm blanket. People at the airport smiled at her, not out of curiosity, but genuine friendliness. Someone even helped her with her luggage without being asked. She was stunned. In her city, that never happened. The taxi driver asked, "First time in the Philippines, ma'am?" "Yes," she said. "I came here because of your spaghetti." The driver laughed so hard he almost missed a turn. Spaghetti. "Ma'am, welcome home." Her first stop was a small eatery she'd seen on YouTube. A family-run carinderia in Quezon City, known for its sweet spaghetti. The owner recognized her from TikTok. "You're the Ukrainian girl who loves Filipino food," he said, proudly serving her a plate. She took the first bite, the real thing this time, and her eyes filled with tears. It wasn't just the taste, it was the energy of the people around her. The laughter, the chatter, the radio playing an old love song. It was everything she'd seen on screen, but now she could feel it. A group of kids at the next table smiled and waved at her. One little girl asked shyly, "Are you a foreigner?" "Yes," she said. "But this food makes me feel like I'm Filipino too." She spent her days exploring markets, joining in street food festivals, and eating at every small cafe she could find. She realized that Filipino food wasn't just about ingredients. It was about emotion. Every dish carried a story of family, struggle, and love. She noticed how Filipinos said, "Thank you" with sincerity, how they smiled, even during power outages or traffic jams, how they laughed easily with strangers. One rainy afternoon, she was caught without an umbrella near a jeepney stop. A family under a tarp waved her over, sharing space and snacks with her as if she were a cousin. She was speechless. That night, she wrote in her travel diary, "Filipino kindness feels like sunlight that reaches your heart, even when it rains." She began to see why the spaghetti was sweet. It wasn't about flavor. It was about spirit. Sweetness was how Filipinos expressed joy. Not just in food, but in life. By the end of her first week, she messaged her friends back in Odessa, saying, "You have to come here. You won't believe how beautiful these people are." Inside and out, they laughed at first. But she promised to bring back something special. The real taste of Filipino happiness. As her plane ticket's return date drew closer, she felt torn. She didn't want to leave. The Philippines had become more than a destination. It was a mirror showing her a better version of herself. And as the sun set over Manila Bay on her final evening, she whispered to herself, "This isn't the end. It's the beginning of something." Because deep inside, she knew she wasn't just going home with a recipe. She was going home with a heart that had changed forever. When she stepped out of the airport in Odessa, the cold air of home felt different this time. The familiar grey streets, the echo of trams, the stoic faces, all suddenly contrasted with the laughter and warmth she had left behind in the Philippines. In her luggage was something precious: packets of banana ketchup, Filipino-style hot dogs, powdered cheese, and a small Philippine flag given to her by the carinderia owner, who told her, "Take this home so the warmth follows you." As snow began to fall, she stood in her small apartment kitchen and carefully unpacked her souvenirs. Every bottle and sachet carried a story. Every scent brought back a memory. The banana ketchup's bright red cap reminded her of the little kids who shared their umbrellas with her in Manila. The cheese powder smelled faintly like the eatery she had loved so much, where laughter seemed to live in the walls. That night, she began to cook again. But this time, it wasn't an experiment. It was a homecoming. The pan sizzled with hot dogs, their edges curling perfectly, and the sweet aroma of the sauce filled her apartment once more. She smiled, remembering the taxi driver's laugh, and the family who shared snacks under the tarp. When the noodles were done, she carefully plated them, sprinkled cheese, and sat down. Her first bite made her eyes water. It was sweet, yes, but also deep with memory. She whispered, "Salamat Philippines." The next day, she decided to share the experience. She invited her closest friends, people who had supported her even when they didn't understand her obsession with Filipino spaghetti. They gathered around her small table, coats hanging on chairs, the air thick with curiosity. "What is this again?" one asked. "It's Filipino spaghetti," she said proudly. "Made the way Filipinos do, sweet, cheesy, and full of happiness." They hesitated at first, but as soon as they tasted it, their eyes widened. "It's so comforting," one said. "It tastes like something you'd eat when you're sad and suddenly feel okay." "That's the magic," she replied. "Filipinos make food that heals your heart." Her friends started asking questions about the people, the culture, the kindness she experienced. She told them about the jeepney rides, filled with strangers who became friends, the smiles that came so easily, the music that played even during storms. They were fascinated. "So they eat this sweet spaghetti during birthdays?" one friend asked. "Yes. Every celebration, no matter how small. Even if they don't have much, they'll share food and make it joyful." That's the Filipino way. Her words seemed to strike a chord in the room. Ukraine had seen years of hardship, and many people had forgotten what it felt like to celebrate small joys. Her story, and that bowl of spaghetti, reminded them that happiness didn't always come from wealth or perfection. Sometimes it came from simplicity, from sharing sweetness, even when life wasn't. Soon, her Filipino spaghetti nights became a ritual. Every weekend, she'd cook a big pot and invite new people, co-workers, neighbors, even her landlord. Word spread quickly. Some came out of curiosity. Others came because they missed warmth in their lives. They laughed, shared stories, and took photos with the colorful dish. And before long, they began calling her little gathering the Filipino table. By the end of the month, her kitchen couldn't fit everyone anymore. So, she decided to move it outdoors. At a small cafe owned by a friend who offered her space, they organized a community event called Sweet Happiness, a Taste of the Philippines. She decorated the tables with paper flags and small signs that read, "Mabuhay" and "Kain tayo." On that snowy afternoon, more than 50 people showed up. She cooked the spaghetti with the help of a few volunteers who had become her friends. Music played. Not Ukrainian folk songs this time, but Filipino pop she had brought back on her phone. The rhythm of Taylor and Anak filled the cafe as curious onlookers gathered around, smiling and swaying. When she served the first plate to a child, the boy's mother asked, "Is this your country's food?" She smiled gently. "No, but it feels like it belongs to my heart. That evening, after everyone had eaten and the laughter had softened into quiet contentment, one of the local reporters approached her. "This is something new," he said. "Why did you choose Filipino food of all things?" "Because it represents something I think the world needs," she said. Kindness, resilience, and the belief that no matter how hard life gets, there's always room for sweetness. The article published the next week under the headline, "Ukrainian Woman Brings Filipino Happiness Home." It went viral within days. Filipinos online found the story, flooded her comments with love, and even invited her back. She started getting messages from both Filipinos and Ukrainians. People who said her story made them cry, who said they wanted to cook Filipino spaghetti too. It didn't stop there. Soon, a local TV crew asked to film her while cooking. She laughed nervously, but agreed. They followed her as she prepared the sauce, explaining how the secret ingredient was banana ketchup and love. The segment aired on evening television, showing Ukrainians tasting Filipino spaghetti and smiling. A few weeks later, a Filipino embassy representative contacted her. They invited her to a cultural event in Kyiv, where they were celebrating Philippine Independence Day. She traveled there, nervous but excited. When she arrived, she was greeted like a friend, not a guest. People hugged her, thanked her, and handed her a small apron. Printed with the words, "Pinoy at heart," she helped serve food that day. Adobo, lumpia, pancit, and of course, spaghetti. When she looked around, she saw Filipinos and Ukrainians laughing together, taking photos, exchanging stories. It hit her. This was what food could do. It could unite nations. That night, as fireworks burst above Kyiv, she whispered again, "Salamat," back in Odessa. Her movement continued to grow. Local restaurants began experimenting with sweet-style spaghetti. She shared her Filipino recipes with chefs who wanted to try something different. One small eatery even added Odessa-style Filipino spaghetti to their menu, a version that blended both cultures. The dish became a local favorite. Her social media videos reached hundreds of thousands of views. Filipino vloggers featured her in reaction videos, calling her the Ukrainian ate. She laughed every time she heard that word, ate, meaning big sister, because that's exactly how she felt. Adopted into a family that crossed oceans, she started teaching kids how to cook it too. Every Saturday, she held a cooking happiness class for children in her neighborhood. She'd tell them stories of the Philippines, about jeepneys painted like rainbows, beaches where people played guitar under palm trees, and families who ate together even during storms. The children listened wide-eyed, giggling at the idea of putting ketchup in spaghetti, but when they tasted it, they loved it. One boy said, "It tastes like a smile." She replied softly, "Yes, that's exactly what it is." Over time, she realized something extraordinary was happening. Filipinos who lived in Ukraine started reaching out to her, offering to help. They brought Filipino snacks, shared cultural dances, and joined her events. Together, they created something beautiful. A small but growing Filipino-Ukrainian community built on shared joy and food. At one gathering, a Filipino seaman's wife hugged her and said, "You remind us why we love our country. Thank you for showing Ukrainians that we're more than just workers abroad. We're people with heart." She felt her throat tighten. "No," she said softly. "Thank you. You showed me what real happiness looks like." Months turned into a year. Her Filipino table events became local traditions. People began to see Filipino spaghetti not as strange, but as something comforting and symbolic. A reminder that sweetness could survive even in hard times. One evening, while cleaning up after another successful event, her friend asked, "Do you ever think you'll go back to the Philippines?" She smiled. "Yes, but this time not just to eat, I want to bring people with me, Ukrainians, who want to see where happiness lives. That night, she opened her phone, scrolled through photos of her time in Manila, and stopped at one image. The small carinderia owner who had given her the Philippine flag. She whispered to the screen, "I kept my promise." Outside, snow was falling again, but inside her home, the kitchen was warm, glowing with the scent of sweet spaghetti and the sound of laughter. She realized something profound. The Philippines had not only changed her taste in food, it had changed the rhythm of her life. And though the world outside could be cold, her heart had learned the Filipino way. Find sweetness. Share it. Never let it fade. The morning sunlight filtered through the frosted glass of her kitchen, glinting off a jar of banana ketchup that had become her most cherished possession. What had once been a simple souvenir was now a symbol, a quiet reminder of how one woman's curiosity for a new flavor had transformed into a national story of connection. What began as a humble cooking experiment in Odessa had grown into something bigger than she ever imagined. Filipino spaghetti had crossed cultures, and with it came a wave of warmth that was changing hearts. It started with a television interview. A morning show in Kyiv featured her story under the title, "The Sweet Pasta That United Two Worlds." The host smiled as they tasted her dish live on air, their surprise genuine. "It's sweet but comforting," one said. "You taste childhood in it." That clip went viral, not just in Ukraine, but in the Philippines too, shared across social media with comments like "Pinoy Pride" and "Thank you, Ukraine, for loving our food." The comment sections became digital bridges. Filipinos teaching Ukrainians Tagalog words. Ukrainians replying with "Salamat po" and "Mahal ko kayo." The internet for once became a place of warmth. Soon after, cultural organizations began reaching out. The Philippine Embassy in Warsaw invited her to a Filipino Cultural Week, where she cooked her signature dish alongside real Filipino chefs. For her, standing beside them felt surreal. They wore aprons decorated with the colors of the Philippine flag, while she wore one embroidered with sunflowers, Ukraine's national symbol. The sight of both flags hanging side by side above the food table made her eyes water. She served her spaghetti to a crowd of curious visitors, Poles, Ukrainians, Filipinos, and even Americans who happened to pass by. Everyone smiled after their first bite. Some said it reminded them of birthdays. Others said it tasted like happiness. Word spread even further. Local embassies, cultural councils, and travel influencers began calling it the Filipino sweet wave. Food bloggers wrote articles like how one dish from the Philippines melted Ukrainian hearts. Soon, journalists came to her small city to see what all the fuss was about. She greeted them warmly, cooked for them, and told her story again and again, not out of pride, but out of gratitude. Each time she told it, she made sure to end with the same line. "It's not just spaghetti, it's a lesson in kindness." Filipinos abroad began to notice her too. Seafarers stationed in the Black Sea sent her messages saying they missed Filipino food. Some invited her to visit their ships docked in port. She went once, carrying a pot of sweet spaghetti, and served it to the Filipino crew as they gathered on deck. The seamen laughed, clapped, and sang karaoke under the setting sun. She sat with them, surrounded by laughter and stories of faraway islands. "This is what home feels like," one of them said. She smiled quietly. "Then maybe home isn't a place," she replied. "Maybe it's something we share." Her story also reached Filipino families in other parts of Europe. Groups in Poland, Germany, and the Czech Republic started inviting her to their events. She became a kind of cultural ambassador, not officially, but emotionally. She spoke about what she had learned in the Philippines, the resilience of a people who smiled even in typhoons, the joy of simple meals, the habit of saying thank you for even the smallest kindness. People listened, nodding, as though her words carried something rare and pure, in a time when the world felt divided. Meanwhile, back in Ukraine, her Filipino-style spaghetti started appearing in cafes and restaurants. Some chefs followed her exact recipe. Others made their own versions, combining Ukrainian ingredients like smoked sausage or sunflower oil. Yet all of them credited her inspiration. It wasn't long before local newspapers declared Filipino-style spaghetti the comfort food of the year. Some restaurants even began displaying little Philippine flags next to the dish's name. She kept every newspaper clipping as a reminder of how far a simple meal could travel. Then came something even more unexpected: a partnership between a Filipino food brand and a Ukrainian supermarket chain. They decided to stock authentic banana ketchup and Filipino-style hot dogs nationwide. When she saw the display for the first time, she couldn't believe it. There, under bright lights, were rows of products she once had to carry in her luggage from Manila. People walked by curiously, reading the labels, taking bottles home. The world had truly turned sweet. By summer, she was invited to speak at an international food conference in Kyiv. The theme was how cuisine builds cultural bridges. She stood on stage in front of diplomats, chefs, and journalists, her hands slightly trembling, but her heart steady. "When I visited the Philippines," she began, "I didn't just learn a recipe, I learned a philosophy. Filipinos believe food is love made visible. And when I brought their spaghetti back home, I brought that love with me." The audience applauded. Before she could even finish, she ended her talk by showing a short video compilation of her events. The smiling faces of children tasting sweet spaghetti, elderly Ukrainians clapping during Filipino song nights, Filipinos hugging her with gratitude. By the time the lights dimmed, some people were wiping their eyes. Her influence soon reached Filipino communities beyond Europe. Bloggers from Manila, Cebu, and Davao made videos about her, calling her the Ukrainian who turned Pinoy. One vlog even visited her in Odessa, filming her cooking process and asking her how she captured the Filipino spirit so perfectly. She laughed and said, "Because I learned it from the best teachers, Filipinos themselves." That video became one of the most shared feel-good stories of the year, bridging continents through the universal language of food. But what moved her most wasn't fame. It was the transformation she saw around her. In her city, people started organizing charity food drives inspired by her events. They cooked Filipino spaghetti for children in hospitals and families affected by conflict. They called it the Sweet Meal Project. Every batch came with a small note saying, "A little sweetness to make your day better." What had begun as comfort food had become a symbol of hope. Filipino communities abroad began sending her care packages filled with noodles, cheese, and banana ketchup, sometimes with handwritten letters saying things like, "Thank you for loving our culture," and "Mabuhay from Manila." She kept every note in a small wooden box, alongside her Philippine flag. That box became her treasure chest, a reminder of how one act of curiosity could ripple across nations. Months later, she returned to the Philippines. When she landed at Ninoy Aquino International Airport, she was greeted by a few familiar faces. The same carinderia owner who had once given her the flag, some embassy representatives, and even a local vlogger who had covered her story. They hugged her as if welcoming back a family member. "You made us proud," they said. She looked around at the chaos of Manila's traffic, the smell of street food, the music in the air, and whispered, "It's good to be home." She visited the small carinderia again. It looked the same wooden tables, the same colorful posters on the wall. The owner smiled when she saw her. "You brought the Philippines to Ukraine," she said. "Now the Philippines is bringing you back." They cooked together that afternoon, laughing as they stirred the sweet sauce and shared stories about how far the dish had traveled. The next day, she was invited to a cultural exchange event sponsored by the Philippine Department of Tourism. There, Ukrainians living in the Philippines and Filipinos living in Ukraine shared their experiences. She stood on stage beside both flags once again and said, "I came here a visitor, but I return as family." The applause was long and heartfelt. Over the next few months, her project expanded into a formal cultural program supported by both Filipino and Ukrainian institutions. They called it Project Sweet Unity. Its goal was simple: to promote cultural exchange through food and kindness. She became its first ambassador, organizing events, school programs, and online campaigns that encouraged people to share meals across cultures. In time, she began seeing children wearing shirts printed with little bowls of spaghetti and the words, "Mabuhay Ukraine." It made her laugh every time she saw one. But more than that, it made her believe that goodness, like flavor, could be shared endlessly. She often looked back on the day she first tasted that sweet spaghetti in a Manila carinderia. Who could have imagined that one small bowl of noodles could lead to something so vast? It had connected strangers, bridged nations, and taught her that love, in its simplest form, can be cooked, shared, and tasted. Years later, when she opened her own cafe in Odessa, decorated with Filipino flags and Capiz lanterns hanging from the ceiling, she made sure the menu started with one line: "Every meal has a story." This one started in the Philippines, and when customers asked her what made her spaghetti special, she always answered with a smile. It's not just sweet, it's Filipino, because for her, sweetness was more than flavor. It was a way of life. One she had learned from a people who had taught her the most beautiful truth of all, that no matter how far you travel, kindness and warmth can make any place feel like home. And so, as the smell of her sauce filled the cafe and laughter filled the air, she realized that she hadn't just brought the Filipino spirit to Ukraine, she had carried it into the world.